Sorry we're running late. We had a lot going on today. We're doing deals. I had to speak to the Senate Republican caucus, and we'll see. But no, and you see who's here? Mike Harris. Mike's been doing a lot of great stuff. Yeah, you got to come up a lot closer.
Thank you.
Mike's been doing a lot of great stuff, so we brought Mike. And Mike has never been to one of our press conferences, and people kept saying, Bill Schuette, Bill G. Schuette, he's at like every one of these. When is Mike Harris going to show up? So I said, we'll bring Mike. Doing a lot of great work on the insurance committee, really. It's impressive what you're doing on insurance. Every week, it's like the big issues that I talk about, and then there's like 2 or 3 insurance bills. And they're really complicated, and Mike is just spearheading those insurance bills and doing a great job. And you see the Public Safety Trust Fund and what we did with that. Mike did a lot of work on that. And remember, we were with Mayor Duggan, you and I, and Alabas Farhat, and a lot of Democrat police chiefs. We were together. Sheriff Washington from Wayne County, who's, by the way, he's changing his sanctuary policies at his jail because of our House budget and our House rules. So he's doing a really good job. And then Mike will talk a little bit about the school safety bill package in a little bit. So we're looking forward to that. But no, I'll just talk first about this website. Has anyone been on the website this week? The Secretary of State's website. We have this deadline on Thursday. The politicians are supposed to file their disclosures for their finances on Thursday, and I think Winnie Briggs must be going to this website and trying to fill out her information because she desperately wanted to meet to talk about this website. So I actually talked to her yesterday. We had a Zoom meeting, a phone conversation, and I listened to the concerns. And basically, Jocelyn Benson's website doesn't work. And you go on there, and there's no search function for these. You're supposed to report these things that say it's like, report whatever other people have been reported, and then you go on there and you try to find the what are they reporting? You can't find it. So you look at this. On this personal financial disclosure website, I talked to our members and I talked to a lot of politicians, and I said, "How's the website working?" And they say, "Every time we go on there, it crashes. I submit my information and it crashes. Their website errors." There's poor site mapping. The platform is failing. So essentially, our people go on there, and every 5 seconds they send you a pin. You guys should go on this website. Every 5 seconds they send you a pin, and you got to take the pin and you got to type it in. You change. Someone gave me a Diet Coke. You get a pin, and then you got to take the pin and you got to type it in and make a change. And then people are trying to submit these, politicians, and they crash. You get all the way to the end and it crashes, and then you got to start over. And you're in there, you're halfway through, the whole thing resets. It's a mess, this website. And then you look at the campaign finance website. You guys are familiar with that. I'll just read some of your quotes. We saw Elena had a tweet talking about how the Department of State is now asking for a username and password to view campaign finance filings for elected officials. Previously, these were readily available through the site. So, they're asking for a username and password in some cases to view campaign finance filings because Jocelyn Benson wants to know what you guys are looking at. That's what I suspect. She'll probably tell Dana Nessel, but then Craig Mauger. The Michigan campaign finance disclosure site is not working the way it should. It hasn't for months. This directly hinders the ability of reporters and the public to find out who's financially supporting lawmakers while they make decisions that affect all of us. That came from Craig Mauger. And then we all know Nick Smith from Gongwer. He's highly respected. He says, also, the revamped campaign finance page is much more inefficient and cumbersome to navigate from what I can tell. Past site was not the greatest, but far easier to navigate than this. And now we know that this website that Benson came up with, she funded through Tyler Technologies. And I know we have a new person here from the Midwesterner, right? What is your name? Travis? Travers. Great. What's your last name? What is it? Corey. Travis. Wow. Well, we've got a great new reporter from the Midwesterner, and you see, I got this from the Midwesterner. Do you see this? It's a really good story, and it's titled "Contractor for Jocelyn Benson's Bungled Transparency Network Faces Serious Reckoning in Illinois." And I mean, this was a really good story, and you look at it, and it says their research found that, let me find the page I'm on, right here. It says that the investigation revealed Tyler officials have a history of donating campaign funds to Democrat elected officials running for offices in need of modernization. Now, they point out it remains unclear if Benson received campaign contributions from company officials, as her transparency network does not work. And now I'll know some people think that the reason that Jocelyn Benson's website does not work is that she wants to conceal the fact that House Republicans outraised House Democrats in the last quarter by a huge margin. And that if you look at all of my funds, you would see, if you could look at them, that I outraised Ranjiv Puri and all the Democrats, really, Brinks, all of them. I've raised more money than anyone, and the House Republicans have raised more money than any of these caucuses. People are donating to us because they align with our principled vision, but you won't know any of that because Jocelyn Benson's website does not work. And that might be why they're trying to conceal it, because we're out fundraising the Democrats. I don't know. A lot of people have a lot of theories. This Tyler Technologies has 18 federal lawsuits around the country over their poor ability to create websites and to deliver on what they promised, including allegations of fraud by a Michigan County 911 consortium claiming Tyler gave false assurances about its technology. Now in Illinois, they created a project that was supposed to cost $75 million and now has grown to $265 million with no end in sight of oversight costs and additional expenses of maintaining records technology. So Tyler Technologies, which has a history of giving to Democrats, is a mess. Every website they touch is much more expensive than promised and never works. And this is who Jocelyn Benson handpicked to create the campaign finance website and the lobby disclosure website that are not working. I mentioned, how long has it been since we filed our reports? It's been like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You still don't know how much money anyone's raised. And when you're trying to file your disclosure that's due Thursday, it doesn't work. You can't get the information on the lobby disclosure that you need to report the lobbyist gifts. And you can't go on there and see, or you can't even file it. You try to file it and you get an error message every time you try to submit something. So even the Democrats are understanding this is the case. And so, Winnie Brinks reached out and desperately wanted to make a deal to extend the deadline on this filing because the website doesn't work. And you see that the Democrats moved two bills a few weeks ago over to us. One is a McBroom bill and one is an Irwin bill. And these do some things to the disclosures. And now notice there was another bill that we will never take up that they want to make it so the politicians can go to more conferences for free. So we're not going to do that. But there's two other bills, and I'll just say, when I was talking to Brinks, I think there were kind of three things that I looked at here. I said, look, I will help you with your problem, Brinks, because the difference is, Brinks finally has an issue that she wants to solve, right? It's like a policy that she wants to solve, which is she wants to delay the implementation of this filing because the website doesn't work, because Jocelyn Benson is failing with her website. Because, Jocelyn Benson is out selling books and campaigning for governor, and she's not fixing her website. And by the way, I'm happy to announce that next week the House Oversight Committee will begin their investigation into this $9 million website that Tyler Technologies and Jocelyn Benson have completely bungled. They've screwed up. They spent $9 million that we know of, and the website is not working, and as a result, we're going to have to pass legislation today to address this problem that Jocelyn Benson has created while she's been out campaigning for governor and selling books. So, Brinks comes to me and wants to solve a problem. So I said, okay, I'll help you. And we're helping her with the problem she wants to solve, which is the website doesn't work and nobody can file. So I said, okay, we will help you with this problem. This is a Senate priority that we want to help you with. But what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that, number one, that we decide what the form is. Okay, so we're going to decide what the form is because Jocelyn Benson is changing every 2 days what's on this form. And so it's like you're changing what this form is, and you have to keep revising the form because Benson changes it every day, what the form is. And you go on the website and you try to submit it and it crashes. So we said we are going to put into the law what the form is. Jocelyn Benson cannot handle this form. She's failing at coming up with a form. You think about that. She tried over the weekend to send out some PDF. I don't know if you saw this. It's like a fillable PDF, and even that doesn't work. So we just said Jocelyn Benson will not be making this form. She doesn't have the talent or the in her department. I don't know. Maybe they're not at work. I mean, these people that work for her are probably not at work. And so think about that. If they're not at work, I mean, they're probably struggling. I know when we went to file some of our critical forms right after the election. When you win the election, you have to go file some forms before you can take the oath of office. This was the end of last year. We couldn't file our forms because there was no one in the office. They said the people that you file these forms to in the Jocelyn Benson Secretary of State's office, they do not work in person. You go, how the hell do we file these forms if these people don't work here? So they brought them in for one special day to accept our forms so we could take the oath of office. Imagine the customer service the people of Michigan are getting from this department if that's what the politicians have to do to get service from it. But whatever it is, whether it's they don't have the talent or their people are not in the office, or maybe they're distracted with Jocelyn Benson's campaigning and her book sales, they cannot manage this form. It isn't working. So we said we are going to take this form away from Jocelyn Benson and we are going to prescribe in the law what the form is. And then secondly, we're going to ensure that you can submit this form through email. Because you could extend this date until December, and I still don't think that website would work. And they wanted it so that you had to submit it on the website. I said, no, you could submit it on the website if it ever works, but you can just take it, the form that's in the law, and send it to Jocelyn Benson in email, and that will suffice as a filing. And maybe someday she'll put it on her website when her campaign's over. I don't know. And then the next thing is that we are going to extend this date to June 13th. That gives us 29 days. 30 days would have been on a Saturday, and there's no way that Jocelyn Benson and her staff would work on a Saturday. That's a good day to campaign. So we're going to do it on Friday, June 13th. So you will see, I think, this legislation move through the House today. And I think you'll see, the Senate take it up pretty quickly. So I'll just say, when there's look, I mean, I don't want to do this. This isn't what I want to do, but look at the situation we're in. I mean, Jocelyn Benson's website doesn't work, and this filing is Thursday. So we said, okay, we will help the Senate leader solve this problem, and we're going to fix it. So I'll just say, for those of you that write all these stories that say we can't get things done, we're helping the Senate with their problem, and you'll see that move very quickly. So, yep, that's an update for you. I've got a lot of other things I want to talk about, but I'll turn it over to Mike Harris, who'll talk about our school safety legislation that's moving this week.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Welcome, everybody. So we have 9 bills that are a continuation of a package that obviously you folks have all heard about for the last couple of years. Last term, these got left at the table, did not get across the finish line, and so the speakers made this a priority this year to get this done so we can restore some more fundamental principles for school safety around the state. So we have, again, like I said, 9 bills. We have Kathy Schmaltz, who's been a huge supporter of school safety, has a bill that requires schools to review and update their safety plans every 3 years. Rep. Pavlov has a bill that requires the Michigan State Police to provide uniform, comprehensive school safety training for school resource officers and all staff at Michigan schools. I have a bill that ensures that school resource officers, school safety or security personnel, members of the school crisis team, and all school staff complete that training. Rep. Steele, another huge supporter, and in Oakland County, one of my neighbors, requires schools to include contact information for the OK to Say tip line on student ID cards, so it's very accessible to all of our students. Rep. Lenting adds an additional school lockdown drill, so we're taking one drill away from the current requirements for fire drills, moving that over to the lockdown side of the drill package, and requires at least one of the lockdown drills being done during lunch, recess, or school assemblies, and at least one lockdown drill while students are in between classes, when it's applicable. And I think currently we have 5 fire drills and 3 lockdown drills. This will create some parity between the 2 sets of bills, or lockdown drills. Rep. Fairbairn has a bill that requires each ISD to employ an emergency and safety manager and mental health coordinator, and this is only a mandate if the state appropriates the funds to do this. Other than that, this is a guideline for them to follow this. And then we have 3 other bills from Rep. Neely, Rep. Regas, and Rep. Steckloff that expands and improves the OK to Say tip line. The state's confidential tip line for reporting school-related threats, misconduct, or mental health crisis. Reporting and tips received by OK to Say would be passed on to the ISD coordinators and local law enforcement. Reporting and tips would also be provided quarterly to the School Safety and Mental Health Commission that got created under this package. And higher standards and new reporting definitions for OK to Say would also be adopted. Now, it's probably important to note my background comes from law enforcement, as many of you already know, but I also spent a couple of years as a school resource officer. So I'm honored to be part of this package and have some input, and the speaker has been very gracious to have me be part of this package. And we've worked through a lot of changes on this, and I think it'll be very meaningful for schools across the state. With that, I'll open it up to any questions that
Let me talk some more.
Yeah, go ahead.
You also want to tell them about the process that we used to come up with this package, where it came from?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
And then I'll talk after you.
yeah.
Okay.
So there was a Republican commission put together, bipartisan commission or task force, and I believe it was even Republicans and Democrats on this task force that vetted a lot of these programs across many stakeholders, schools, school boards, superintendents' offices, and a lot of our private and non-public schools, as well as law enforcement. I think even EMS was involved. So this was a culmination of different ideas that were brought from a variety of different people that are involved in school safety. A lot of this, like I said, came up last term, and for whatever reason, many of these bills were left behind. And like I said, I think it's important that the speaker has really pushed to complete this package and get it done this year. But again, these are all things that have come from very valued stakeholders across the state and been vetted. And I think we've talked to most of you quite a bit about this over the last year or two. So.
We'll take the questions in a sec, but he jumped the gun a little. So let me just say, and then we'll answer your question, Tim. I'll just say the Democrats were the ones that did not do these bills. When the Democrats had the majority, they sat on these bills. Now, I looked at a picture. I went to our people and I said, I want to get that report. And I looked at the report, and this report came after the Oxford shooting of, what could we do to improve public safety across Michigan? And they showed me a picture from it, and guess who was in the picture? Ranjiv Puri. And so it'll be interesting to see if he votes no on these bills like he votes no on everything else with his negative governing philosophy. But you look at this, we sent letter after letter during Shared Power last year and said, Speaker Tate, we have bipartisan school safety legislation, and you won't take the bills up. What a great way to to deal with shared power. We have this bipartisan review that happened after Oxford. Luke Meerman worked on it with some Democrats, and yet you saw Kolazar and Breen and Tate and all these Democrats sit on this. And remember, they also, in their budget, they gutted school safety 92% and school resource officers. They sat on the school safety legislation. So when we got on the campaign trail, we told the people of Michigan with our mission for Michigan, number one, we are going to restore the school safety funding. Number two, we are going to pass this bipartisan school safety package, something that the House Democrats blocked for 2 years. So when we put it up, I bet you it'll get 80 or 90 votes, but we'll see. And then before we get to the questions, I just want to walk through a couple things. So I was watching Rick Albin's show, and he had John Fitzgerald on. And John Fitzgerald said the following. He said, where is the, he says that all of these bills, the Democrats don't get any say. And the reason that Winnie Brinks and the Senate Democrats are not moving any bills is because they're not being considered Democrat ideas. And I'll just say the media should not let these Democrats get away with these kind of lies. So the quote is, where is the opportunity to negotiate and have some amendments that are taken into consideration? My caucus has worked diligently to try and tailor things before they go across the dome, but that has not taken place. What Fitzgerald says in this interview is essentially when the Democrats were there, they did everything bipartisan. He talks about some committee he chaired, and man, I mean, he's like, I had 6 bills come out of my committee, and they were all bipartisan. I mean, we should put him up against Nancy DeBoer. Nancy told me she already has 27 bills that have come out of her committee, and I think we've run all of them. But Fitzgerald is bragging about 6 bills that came out of his committee, and they were all bipartisan. Now, this is a revisionist history of the last 2 years for Fitzgerald and the Democrats to try to say that things were bipartisan last year. I bet if you look at the record, I wish Gorchow was here to tell us, but if you look at the record, there were, number one, there were the fewest session days last year that they've ever had in probably 80 years or more. Number two, there were probably the fewest bipartisan bills. These people didn't do anything bipartisan, just about. Then they come to us and say, none of these bill packages are bipartisan, and that's why Winnie Brinks won't take them up. Well, I just want to walk through this real quick. I mean, first of all, let's look at the roads. The roads was a bipartisan vote. We had a lot of Democrats vote for our bipartisan roads plan. It's the only bipartisan roads plan because Democrats voted for it. Governor Whitmer has said, I'm the only legislative leader she's worked with that has the guts and the brains to put a roads plan forward. I'll talk about that. If you look, we made amendments based on Republican and Democrat member feedback to put revenue sharing back in that roads plan, backfill it, and to put the Community Housing Development Fund back into that legislation based on the feedback from both Democrat members and Republican members. And you saw Alabas Farhat, and a lot of Democrats vote for that. That is taking Democrat amendments and ideas and incorporating them into the legislation. And we had a lot of Democrat votes. So now that I've clarified the record on that, maybe Winnie Brinks will run our bipartisan roads plan. It's the only bipartisan roads plan. Instead of putting a $3 billion placeholder with no plan, even Chad Livengood admits that the Democrats have no plan to fix the roads. They put a $3 billion contingent placeholder in their budget. Now remember, what their budget plan is just tacking 3% on the top of whatever they did last year. I said that last week, and then someone came up to me and corrected me and said, that's if you don't count the $3 billion placeholder for roads. If you put that in there, it'd be like a probably 7% increase from last year. It's a big increase. And remember, the Senate Democrats, because they're going to vote on a budget today, these guys, they just took what they did last year and added 3% on it. It makes no sense. And they have no roads plan in that budget. So it's bigger than Whitmer's budget. I thought Whitmer's budget was big. It was like $83.4 billion. This is $83.7 billion. It is bigger than Whitmer's budget, what the Senate is looking to do today. It's crazy if you think about it. I think they would benefit from more time working on that budget because it's not very creative to just add 3% to last year and say, if we get a roads deal, then we'll raise taxes $3 billion, and it'll be an $86.7 billion budget. That's crazy. The Public Safety Trust Fund, okay. Remember, we had this press conference, and one of the bills, it's you and Farhat, right?
Yes.
Do you want to say anything about that? I mean, because John Fitzgerald is saying that the Public Safety Trust Fund was not a bipartisan package and that his members had no input on it, and he says that's why Winnie Brinks won't run it. What do you have to say about that?
It passed the House with 104 votes, so I think that's pretty overwhelmingly bipartisan. And Rep. Farhat's been a fantastic partner on this, and we've taken input not only from each other, but also stakeholders that I don't think are necessarily Republican or Democrat, or some are Detroit chiefs and sheriffs, and I mean, the input has been overwhelming, and it's definitely from both sides of the aisle, and you've been very gracious with that as well.
Yeah, and I'd just say we had Mayor Duggan with us, we had Sheriff Washington from Wayne County, we had a lot of Democrat police chiefs, and they're all saying, they say, if we get this funding, we will put cops on the street now, we will get them the equipment. And I'll just point out, the Senate Democrats sitting on this, I mean, there's $75 million in the budget for the current year that is not being spent because this Public Safety Trust Fund the Democrats won't take it up. That's money that could be going right now to hiring police, and it's money right now that could be going to getting them equipment, but it's just sitting in some committee room in Lansing. That's real consequences for public safety and violent crime prevention across our state caused by the Senate Democrats. Our foreign influence package last week had a lot of bipartisan support. We had, I believe, 7 Democrats who voted to reverse the last year's income tax hike. HEAT, do you guys remember HEAT? The Hall Ethics, Accountability, and Transparency Plan. Our bill to eliminate the revolving door where politicians become lobbyists, that had 98 votes. Now, there were 2 more Democrats that voted for the bill to allow, because we want to stop Nessel and Benson and Whitmer and Gilchrist and all these, department heads, Elizabeth Hertel. After this next election, they're going to be looking for work, and they some of them might try to become lobbyists. So we passed a bill to stop those Whitmer administration officials and other executive branch officials from becoming lobbyists right when they leave office. Now, 2 more Democrats voted for that one, so that must be Benson. Those must be the 2 Benson loyalists. I don't know. Or maybe the Nessel loyalists. So that one only got 96 votes. There were 2 that think the politicians in the legislature should not become lobbyists, but for some reason they think that the Whitmer administration officials should become lobbyists after the next election when they're looking for work. We got 103 votes on the bill, and it's 103 to 6 to stop Democrat politicians like Rebecca Warren from being lobbyists in other states while they're lobbying in Michigan. That was 103 votes. We got 80 votes to stop NDAs, the non-disclosure agreements, in one of our bills, and 91 votes to stop the politicians from entering into these non-disclosure agreements. So you look at that, those are all bipartisan votes. I mean, in order to do that, you'd need 30 to 40 Democrats on some of these bills. And we hear John Fitzgerald telling Rick Albin that these are not bipartisan bills. Every one of our transparency bills was bipartisan. Then you look at our education reform package. We want to modernize education by coming up with a modern curriculum that focuses on real life skills. 83 votes to waive teacher fees, 96 votes for subject area endorsements. We saw 97 votes for allowing school districts to consolidate their administrative services. We saw 86 votes for updating the website so people could actually use the education website and they could compare it. I talked to somebody who said with the current website, it took them a whole day to try to compare schools. So coming up with a website, advertising it to the parents so they can figure out how their schools are performing. 86 votes. 92 votes to allow trade schools to be part of dual enrollment. And so we had that whole education package was bipartisan. So I'll just say the foreign influence package, bipartisan. Education reform, bipartisan. Hall ethics, accountability, and transparency plan, bipartisan. Roads, fixing our local roads, bipartisan. We even saw our bill to ban illegal aliens from receiving welfare get 63 votes, which would require it to get, 6 or 7 Democrats. Reversing last year's Democrat income tax hike, we had 7 Democrats who now realize they made a mistake and now they're voting for reversing it. So I think almost every bill, even our government shutdown prevention plan to stop Jeff Irwin and Mallory McMorrow and the Senate Democrats who keep talking about shutting down the government. They've been talking about shutting down the government before we won the election. We want to keep all of the vital government services open, and so we passed a government shutdown prevention plan that included bipartisan support. All of them are bipartisan, so I think that John Fitzgerald is lying, and I think the media should report this accurately, that actually we've taken a lot of bipartisan feedback, and all of our big bill packages have been bipartisan, and I think even though Ranjiv Puri was on the school safety task force, I can show you the picture, I'm sure him and other Democrat leadership bosses like him and Fitzgerald, they'll probably vote no on a lot of these bills, but fortunately their members are not listening to them. You see their members are working with us and their members are voting for these packages and they're getting amendments and they're shaping the legislation, and there's no reason for the Senate not to take up these bills. So I'll stop there. Do you want to answer Tim's question about the 7 drills and all that? Go ahead.
So Tim, I'll let you finish your question.
What does the drill entail? Bringing 10 shooters, bringing the cops, and these SWAT teams?
Sure, that's a good question. So the locals get to make those granular decisions. So in this bill package, we talk about kind of a foundational basic training that's going to be administered through the Office of School Safety with MSP. And I'm anticipating that's all going to be like an online annual training that kind of sets a basic foundation. So it's the same across the state, right? Everyone's building from the same foundation. Locals will have the opportunity to decide exactly how they want to execute those drills. So again, being an SRO myself, and I actually had a company that did security consulting, and we talked to some schools, mainly private schools, about how to administer these things. And it can be a variation. It's not all about active shooters. Sometimes it's how to prepare for a hazmat situation in a school. Sometimes there are role-playing type events, right? Other times it's just how do we secure the doors? How do we secure the building? Where should we stand in the classroom? It's not all about bringing in role players. But a good portion of this is how do we react during, passing time in classes, especially in secondary schools. And so it's making sure that everybody kind of has a plan, just like we do with fire drills. And we've seen such great success in the fire drill side of things over decades. And so we're trying to bring some of our past history with that success into the lockdown drills. You're welcome.
Great. Oh, that's a great question, Tim. And let me make sure I covered everything else. Education, roads, public safety. Oh, one more thing I'm just going to say. We're going to bring the state workers back to the office in our budget. You watch. Any other questions? Yeah, Jordan. We missed you last week, by the way. I think Simon was here, and it was kind of like getting a pass. The questions were so easy. I'm just kidding. He's tough. He is tough. And he's written some good stories lately, by the way. But go ahead, Jordan.
You mentioned school safety, got me thinking about public safety. Last month, the Justice Department did announce that there would be funding cuts impacting community events, sort of intervention programs. Are you at all concerned that that could have an impact here in Michigan?
Well, it's hard to see you back there behind that post, Beth. I might not call. If you have a question, you might have to say something because I can't see you. But anyway, to answer your question, I have a lot of confidence in the work President Trump's doing. I think he's doing a great job. I mean, you look at, I did an interview today, and I realized it's only been a month since I was in the Oval Office with Gretchen Whitmer. I think probably tomorrow will be a month. Think about everything that's happened in that month since we met with President Trump. And we met with him, and you remember the governor said, this is what I want to talk about. Will you come join me? And I said, I will come join you if we're talking about Asian carp, something I've been working on back when I worked for Bill Schuette when he was Attorney General in 2010, stopping the Asian carp from getting into the Great Lakes, and then the new fighter mission for Selfridge Air Force Base. And so we went to the Oval Office, we spoke to President Trump. You saw President Trump make the commitment to us in front of all the cameras that he would be back for a ribbon cutting. He kept his promise. I was there, 2 weeks ago with Gretchen Whitmer and Leader Nesbitt, and he announced a new fighter mission for Michigan for Selfridge Air National Guard Base, the best, most modern planes in the country. These were better than the planes we were even asking for, what he did. And that never would have happened without President Trump and an outsider defense secretary who cut through the bureaucracy, took on the administration within the Defense Department, and delivered for Michigan. We saw that happen again with the commitment he made there. He said, I'm going to have some very good news for you when we were in the Oval Office on the fish, as he calls it. And you know that the Asian carp, they're eating up all kinds of things. I mean, they eat up the whole ecosystem, and they reproduce quickly, and they're in these Chicago rivers. And what we saw was this Illinois Governor Pritzker, who probably doesn't want to do this deal. He doesn't want to transfer this land. He doesn't want to pay, but he agreed to it. And when Trump comes into office, he uses things like this, these kind of accusations, and says, I'm backing out of the deal. And so what Governor Whitmer and I were asking from President Trump was to issue the memorandum recommitting your support for fighting the Asian carp and building this barrier in this choke point in Brandon Road. And let's put the ball back in Pritzker's court. Let's challenge Pritzker and let's make him honor his word and do the deal. And you saw, it was 3 weeks later, President Trump did exactly what he said he was going to do for Michigan. He issued that memo, put the ball back in Pritzker's court, and Pritzker blinked. You saw Pritzker completely back down and recommit to the project. That is the art of the deal, what Trump did to Pritzker. Only Trump could have done that. Whitmer couldn't get him to do it. They're both Democrats. Whitmer could not get Pritzker to do it. Pritzker kept blaming Trump, but that was an excuse. I mean, when Obama was there, he was obstructing this too. There's just differences between Michigan's perspective and Illinois' perspective, and they never wanted to do this deal. So Trump forced him back to the table, and that's now moving ahead. You see Illinois Governor Pritzker back down to Trump, and now he's doing the things that we need Illinois to do. So I'll just say, whether it was these things, taking the Department of Education and bringing that back to the states, I mean, that is going to give us so much opportunity to shape our future in education and actually increase the performance of our kids. So I have a lot of confidence in what the Trump administration is doing. And when I hear these things, I say, look, let's wait to see what really happens. You know, we look at President Trump's tariff policies, and you see this 90-day agreement that he's got with China now. You see the historic agreement that he's got with the United Kingdom. You know, I see all this worry, and then what? Yesterday the market was up, what, 1,200 points? I mean, it was incredible what they did. So we've got to give President Trump's administration the time to do the things they need to do, and then when we see what they do, we'll react. Now, I'll say this, I mean, we've worked a lot with Mayor Duggan. I've met with many of these neighborhood leaders in Detroit, something that Tate never did and probably Brinks has never done. I've met with all of these Detroit CVI leaders, and I know them, and they say to me, Speaker Hall, you are welcome in our neighborhoods at any time, and they're doing a great job. These people are reducing the crime rates, 68%, 88%. Is there anything you want to say about these CVI things?
Yeah,
I mean, you were in those meetings with me.
Yeah. So I first met Dewan from Force down in Detroit, and I don't know if you folks have had a chance to speak with him, but I would suggest you reach out. He's a great guy to talk to about boots on the ground type work. The insight that these folks have and the fact that they come from the neighborhoods and they interact with some of the gangs and some of the other issues down there, they're able to stop a lot of this before violence escalates, right? And that's how they've been able to reduce a lot of the shootings and gang violence, you know, between the groups, and they're actually negotiating some peace in their neighborhoods. So we see that, we see the success there, and we want to help fund that.
Yeah, and I'll just say one thing that no one is asking me about is the impact on these CVI programs of Winnie Brinks and the Senate Democrats who still have not passed the Public Safety Trust Fund when that money has been sitting there in the budget since October 1st when the fiscal year started. If Winnie Brinks would support the Public Safety Trust Fund, then these CVI initiatives would get funding from the state of Michigan to help fight violent crime in Detroit, but they won't because the Democrats in the Senate won't act. Any other? Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Do you have, obviously this is a budget concern, do you have concerns about the congressional reductions in Medicaid that affect Michigan?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with all the details of their plans, so we'll look at what they do. And, you know, Greg Van Workum is our leader on the Medicaid budget, and he's doing a great job. And I think we'll see the work he does there. But I didn't look at their bill yet. So, you know, ask me again next week, and I'll answer it. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you talk a little bit more about what the legislation for the financial disclosure, what would be required on the form, what you're proposing?
Yeah, you know, I think it'll look a lot like what was in the law and what was required last year. So did you guys see the forms last year? I don't know what you guys can see because the website doesn't work. Benson's website doesn't work. Do you guys see the form? Like, I don't know, what does it look like when you guys?
Yeah, we don't see it. We can see whatever you guys in for the most part have nothing on them to be in.
Oh, is that right? Is that on the current website or the one that last year? Yeah. So I think it'll look, well, then good. Then you'll get to see what the questions are. So that's an improvement, right? And then, but you know, it's very similar to what happened last year. You look at it, you know, the employers, the spouse employer, you know, the accounts that you have, things like that. But it won't, So but the key is there'll be a form that actually works, because even the PDF they sent us doesn't work. You can't fill it out. So I don't know, Gideon, are we going to get them a copy of the form? We will? Okay, so you'll see it. But yeah, it's going to be a lot like what it was last year, so that'll be good. But it'll work. That's the difference. And if it doesn't work, you can email it. And then someday Jocelyn Benson will post it on our website. Any other questions? Oh, there. See, I told you that was going to happen, Beth. Yeah, I think that you'll see that happen, yeah. Well, like I said, this has been a big priority of the Senate Democrats. This is something they really wanted, was to fix the website. And so they passed 2 bills quite a while ago. And they actually had 3 bills. I think it's 99, 100, and 101. And 101 is they want to get free conferences and more gifts and things like that. And, we're not going to do that. 99 is, and 100. One is Irwin and one is McBroom. And, they gave these to us a few weeks ago, and I wasn't planning on doing anything with them. I didn't see any reason to. But I think that a lot of these politicians, particularly in the Senate, really are seeing the problems with Jocelyn Benson's website. They see that it doesn't work, that they can't file their reports, that they can't find the information you need to file your report. If you try to file your report, you get an error message. It resets over and over and over when you're trying to do it, and you got to start over. It's a mess. I mean, the form changes almost every day. So, like I said, if you want to do this, I know this is a big priority for you. If you want to do it, then we're going to make sure we take this away from Benson, and we're going to design the form, and we're going to put it in the law. And then we're going to need a way to send it to her, because her website will never work. And then it probably makes sense to extend the time for a few weeks. And so we said we would do that, and we're going to send that over to her, and I think you'll see them move it, and it'll probably happen before May 15th. And but I'd say, what's the alternative? I mean, you're not going to get these filings on May 15th anyway, because the website doesn't work. But Jocelyn Benson, we can't get a hold of her office. They're out campaigning for governor. And so you're not going to get the filings May 15th either way. So I'm saying, well, I know we can get them by June 13th if we take the form away from Benson and we put the form out in the bill. We're just going to put the form in the bill. And then you're going to say, so if Benson can't get me a form that works, I'll just take it out of the bill and fill it out. I'll just handwrite it in and I'll send it to her, and then you guys will have it. But otherwise, you're going to have to extend this thing into December before the website works. And I don't even know if it'll work then.
So you're helping the Senate out here by moving these bills?
I think so, yeah. I'm helping them. This is their thing, and I'm helping them.
Agreed to move anything from the House in return?
I didn't ask for anything because, again, these are the Democrats. The Democrats are doing this stuff. I guess what I asked for was, I said that I think that we should take this form away from Benson because she can't administer this form. It's a failure, and her website doesn't work. So I guess that's what I get out of the deal is, I'll help you guys with this stuff, but we can't rely on Benson to do this form. It doesn't work, and the website doesn't work, and we should make sure that we have a process that will work, because the website's a failure. I mean, I read you through all the lawsuits that this Tyler Technologies has been involved in, and they just give to Democrats. They donate to Democrats, which you wouldn't know because the website doesn't work, probably by design. And we're just saying that we're going to fix the form, and Benson will never be able to screw around with the form again. And no matter what website she has, we can turn it in by filling out, by sending it an email. So what I'm saying is we're helping them out. And it's not that hard. I mean, you see Public Safety Trust Fund in the Senate. You see HEAT, the Hall Ethics Accountability Transparency Plan. You see our school bills. I talked about how they're all bipartisan, so they could start moving bills. But what we're doing right now is we're helping them out with the problem because, I mean, they're right. The website doesn't work and Benson can't handle it. Yeah, Beth?
Is there a reason the oversight committees haven't taken on those grants having to do with chasing my
Well, I think for me, what I'm trying to do with the oversight committee, and I don't chair it, but I advise them, right? I try to give them advice. What I'm trying to do, I'll explain it this way. So what the oversight committee is it could go anywhere. You know, it's not like bills. So when you go to a policy committee, they're bills. And you can limit the jurisdiction of a policy committee based on the bills you give them, okay? Limiting the jurisdiction of oversight committees and subcommittees, that's a little loose, right? There's got to be conversations between the subcommittee chairs and me and the oversight chair and our staff, and you try to get them to focus in a direction, all right? So my point is, we already won the debate on earmarks. This is what I tell our people. You know, we saw through the Clare Health Park and many others the problems with earmarks. And I said, we already won that because we passed a House rule that passed 105-0 to force disclosure of earmarks. And you saw the politicians for the first time. Now, Craig Mauger won't give me any credit. He thinks this just happened, but you saw Channel 7 in Detroit. They said, because of Speaker Matt Hall and the new House Republican majority, it's there. But that's the truth, by the way. So because of me and the House Republicans, the disclosures are there. And even though their weak, failed leader, Ranjit Puri, and his negative governing philosophy, he said that they shouldn't fill out the disclosures. I think he was the only one in the whole Democrat Party that didn't do it. Now you have all of the earmark requests to go through and to vet months before the vote. We're going to learn a lot about these things, and we're going to have a very transparent process, and you're going to see committee hearings on these issues. So we made that change. We won that battle. We have a limited amount of time, and we have a lot of very uncooperative government departments, something you know a lot about, Beth, because they won't cooperate with you either. They say, it's a security concern to tell you where the government workers are and whether they're working. And I saw on Tim's show, you know, Zach Gorchow has heard that some departments are only required 2 days a month to appear in person. That's incredible. So we are going to change that, and the government workers are going to come back to work. So you could take on any issue. And I say, let's not take on the issues we've already won. We won on the earmarks. Those are being disclosed. Where we need to go is on these economic development programs that are not working, and Jordan and Bridge have done a great job reporting on those. You have, many of you have. And these economic development programs are not working. We're giving hundreds of millions of dollars to GM. It's like $300 million a year. And all we're asking them, don't lay off 15,000 people. If you lay off 14,000 people, we'll still give you $300 million a year. Just don't lay off 15,000 people. That's not a good deal. And then they're saying raise everyone's taxes because we want to give GM $300 million so they don't lay off 15,000 people. But they could lay off 14,999 and that'd be fine, okay? That's a bad deal. We need to get out of that deal and put that money to the roads. Now, you read all of your reporting. What you'll see is none of these SOAR programs have created any jobs. And we know that the governor and others are pushing for more. And so what I'm telling, the direction I'm giving our team is let's focus on those economic development programs and these corporate subsidies. Let's look into these grant programs, right? I mean, you look at, they say it's economic development. Is the barbershop quartet getting the job done? I mean, we're going to look into that, these economic development art grants that they're doing. And these are the victims of BOJ, but you know, there are more of them all over the budget. So I'm telling them, let's look at these things, because what we need to do is not look backward. What we need to do is we need to focus ahead on this next budget and these upcoming conversations, and we need the information to make the decisions. That's the reason you're seeing the focus on the current economic development programs and trying to, because I told our people, I said, look, maybe just the Detroit News is very biased against the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, And if that's the case, then come forward and prove to us that your economic development plans are working, because when I read your reporting, it sure doesn't look like it. And we have not won that battle yet, but I think when we get done through the Oversight Committee, I think we'll persuade even the governor to back away from some of these programs, and let's make better investments. Let's work on the fundamentals, our regulatory policies, our tax policy, and our economic development policy, and focus on problem solving for our existing businesses, and we'll do a lot better. What was your follow-up?
Did former Speaker Winter ask you not to look into those grants?
No, him and I have not discussed it.
So, but you guys are not looking into
So I can't,
this stuff from 2020, it's not those grants.
look, I mean, I'll just say this, that the direction that I give to the subcommittee chair is to focus on the weaponization of government under Dana Nessel, and to look at all of these things that Dana Nessel is doing. I mean, you look at what she's doing. She's spending all kinds of money suing President Trump. I mean, how many lawsuits has she filed against President Trump? I mean, it's a lot. That's all she does is file lawsuits against President Trump. And they're not, I mean, you see, the state of Michigan is not even entering these lawsuits. You know, governor isn't involved in these things. That it's just Dana Nessel on a witch hunt against the Trump administration. And so we need to be looking into that. We need to be looking into, you know, all of these people right now. You think about this. They're people who've been, let's say they've spent 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in litigation because they're political opponents of Dana Nessel, and with no end in sight. I mean, you look at what she did to Rick Snyder. I mean, there's a pattern of this where right now, people like Matt DePerno, people like Michonne Maddox, Stanley Grott, a lot of these people, John Haggard, they're being prosecuted by, I mean, over the 2020 election. I mean, Trump won in 2024, and she's still trying to fight these people with no end in sight. This will be probably until she's gone, and then the next attorney general will just say this was a waste, just like what she did in Flint. So, yeah, the direction I give to the chair, the oversight subcommittee chair, is focus on that. And I think that subcommittee, the weaponization of state government, will get there. So I tell them what I think they should do. And then, you know, the subcommittee chairs are doing what they want to do and what they, you know, what they see they need to do. And so in that case, you saw Regis go a little bit backwards. But I think that you'll see her moving forward, focus on forward looking. But that's okay. I mean, if our subcommittee chairs feel the need to go look at other things, you know, I assigned them that position, right? But the direction I'm giving them is to go forward looking. And that's why we're focusing on the big corporate subsidies that we're going to end, instead of going back and fighting about every earmark that I disagree with. Because you know, imagine if we had an investigation into the Hip Hop Academy. Do you know what I mean? Like, we could look at every one of these earmarks that Sarah Anthony passed out around Lansing, and we could have a lot of fun looking at all those. It wouldn't just be the Wentworth-Claire grant. You could make a lot of Democrats look really bad if we went back and really examined what they did with these earmarks. But with limited time, we decided that we're going to make transparency on the earmarks. We already won that one, and now we're going to move forward, and we're going to focus on ending a lot of these economic development programs that don't work and taking the money and putting it into what's more important, our local roads. Does that answer your question?
We've got time for just one more.
Yeah, Rick.
Josh Schreiber and his
Yeah.
comments on immigrants. Do you find that problematic?
Yeah, I didn't see his comments. So
They're
you,
on the floor.
okay, what did he say? You notice I'm talking to you guys a lot.
Immigrants are not integrating into American society, that we should be allowing them in because they are refusing to become Americans.
Yeah, no, I didn't see the comments, but I'll just say this. What I really appreciate about Representative Shriver is that he's, you see a difference, I think, between him last year and this year. And we gave him his staff back. I mean, you remember that. Think about that. Joe Tate took his staff away for 2 years, basically. The people of Michigan had a chance to vote on the issue of Josh Shriver, and they reelected him by a lot in a primary and a general. And so we're looking at it and saying people know Josh Shriver, they know about statements he's made, and they've decided to put him back by a lot, by a big margin. So what I'm doing is I've got him as a member of our caucus, and what I've tried to do is put him in positions to succeed, and he's on some of these oversight subcommittees. I think he's doing a very good job there. And you see him really voting with our caucus on a lot of issues. And you think about this is the difference between Joe Tate and, I thought it was interesting, Joe Tate's running for Senate. Did you guys see that? Pretty interesting. I hope the other Democrats ask him why he didn't turn in the 9 bills. And do you see, I thought somebody asked him, and he blamed Karen Whitsett and me. And, at least one reporter, Craig Mauger, actually, for the first time, said something I agree with. He said, what does the 9 bills have to do with Matt Hull and Karen Whitsett? It has nothing to do with us. I mean, he could turn in the bills at any time, but he did not turn in the 9 bills. And he created a constitutional crisis. And now he's running for the United States Senate, and I think the other Democrat candidates should ask him why he didn't turn in the bills, But I'll just say the difference between me and Tate is our members are voting together as a team. And you see Josh Shriver, what a great job he's doing, and you see how he's stepping up and he's voting with our members on a lot of their priorities. I mean, some of these things I talked about, Josh Shriver voted for. So I appreciate how he's working with our members as a team. And even though we might have differences at times in how we talk and how we communicate, and I've expressed some of those in the past where him and I disagreed, I appreciate that he's working as a member of our team, and he's trying really hard to shape the legislation and get to yes, instead of what we saw in the Democrat caucus, where they leverage their speaker and try to get him to do really bad things. Josh Shriver is working with us, and he's getting to yes, and it's one of the reasons our caucus has been so successful is our unity. We can take our differences in how we communicate and what we believe, and we can focus on a big set of issues, which I've laid out for you: public safety trust fund, modernizing education, focusing on real-life skills, fixing our local roads without raising taxes, and on and on and on. Yeah, Elena.
I mean, you're saying that Josh Shriver is working with the caucus.
Yep.
Yes, but does that also mean his far-right controversial views are shaping the legislation coming out of the caucus?
Well, I think what Josh Shriver is doing is he's working with us, and you can see what the bills are. I mean, Democrats are voting for these bills. So I would go to them and say, look, when you voted for the Public Safety Trust Fund and it got, 100 votes, did you know that, my guess is Josh Shriver voted for that, right? When you look at some of our big education bills, like, making phonics the official standard of Michigan, do you know that Josh Shriver voted for that? You know what I mean? So if I say it's, again, you get the right leader, which is me, focusing on issues that bring people together instead of issues that divide us, you're going to get bipartisan public policy that everybody from Josh Shriver to Alabas Farhat can support. Just not Ranjiv Puri, because he has a very negative governing philosophy. Any other questions? All right, well, thanks everybody. I hope this was informative and gave you something to write about. Thank you, Mike. Great job, Mike Harris. You guys want Mike back in the future? He did pretty well. All right, thanks.